All right, let's get started. Welcome to Unrecordables 2. Unrecordables is a series of electronic music events we host at Wayne State University, and this is our second one. So this year's Unrecordable Festival's theme is community in Detroit. We are so rich in the history of music, in electronic music, and also we have great communities. And then there's a lot of people doing great music. So my vision for this festival is to bring those communities together. Sometimes we know each other, sometimes we don't know each other. And I think the best way to know each other and support each other is to listen to their music, come to what their visions are, what their music is. So I hope this event will be like one of the many events that's going on in Detroit where we gather a community of like-minded people and also people who are curious about what electronic music can do and what we do as a musician. So this year we brought two synth communities in the area, North Coast Modular Collective and Detroit Synth Project, and also some of the Wayne State music technology programs personnel will be also presenting their music. So today we have a day full of events. We are going to start with the little presentation and a workshop presented by each of the groups. And then at 3 o'clock we are going to have a concert. And then there's going to be some kind of like a symposium, a discussion at 4:30. At 5:30 there's going to be another workshop, and at 7:30 we finish with the concert. So if you have not grabbed the program already, we have a schedule here. Also note that the event will be in two places. This is the Schaver Recital Hall, and then there's going to be a recording studio where we will hold the other half of the events. So I will let you know, actually basically at 3 o'clock and at 5:30, the events will be upstairs, and I will be outside to guide you. We have a flag. We have a flag. I mean, there's a sign. If you wander around, you're gonna end up in like double reed audition and dance audition that's going on today. So, but I mean, it's very easy to find, and I will be happy to help you to do the. Excellent. So we are going to start with the North Coast Modular Collective, and I'm just going to let Bill and Joe talk about what they do and what they want to present. Okay.
So welcome everybody. We're really honored to be here and part of this event. We've had the privilege of working with Joo Won on a few different events in the past, so we're so happy to be here in Detroit, where so many of us take so much inspiration from. So I'm Bill Van, part of North Coast Modular Collective's core organizers.
And I'm Joe Bauer, also one of the core organizers.
Yeah. So we are primarily working out of the Ann Arbor Ypsilanti area, but one of the goals that we have is to build community not just in our area, but to extend and reach out and start to build that into a larger community as well, which is one of the reasons that we're so happy to be here today. Our collective does a number of things, and so what we'll do is give a little introduction to what we do as a collective, how we're sort of set up and what we do, and then dive into some of our philosophy and the work that we're doing in actually designing instruments as part of that. So, yeah. So the who we are part is something that's definitely evolved over the last couple of years. There are half a dozen or so of us that work as what we call core organizers. Basically the ones that are kind of like organizing events, working towards the goals that we have, and then a much larger number of collectivists, people who have joined with us to either perform at an event or help with a design idea. And we've had up to over 100 participants in some of the different things that we've done. So there's sort of a few layers or circles of participation as part of the collective. The things that we do are really focused on these three goals of music, instruments, and community, and so you'll see that reflected throughout our presentation today. The community aspect is one of them, but music is what it all comes together with for us, of course, right? That's the reason that we're all standing here and that we're doing this stuff in the first place. So that takes a few different, that takes a few different aspects. One, of course, are performances. We love performing music, and so we do that in standalone events. We do that as part of our series. Sometimes some of our meetups, which we'll talk about, include performances. Some of the photos that are on the screen right there are from some of the performances that happened during our summer camp, which is an event that is primarily focused on the core organizers, but have been trying to expand to involve more of the community in the past. So that's actual in-person live performances as well as live streaming events that we've been capturing with the video and making available as an archive for the artists that participate. We also, of course, well, not of course, but we also do community meetups, and that's sort of the impetus for getting the larger group going in the first place. And Joe can speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, so bringing the community together, trying to have the community itself be part of the presentation. So we do open calls usually for people to come and show some sort of aspect of something. And one of our overall goals is to help kind of lower the barrier to get into synthesis. It can be kind of intimidating, it can be difficult, expensive, and so we've been trying to bring that together. We've had many really great partners out in the community that have given us physical space, like the Ann Arbor District Library, which you see a picture of one of those meetups there. We've also had Ann Arbor STEAM School, where Bill is a faculty member, and some other maker spaces around in the Ann Arbor FC area as well.
Yeah, and so this event specifically that's on the screen was definitely our most populated meetup. It was held this past January, and the idea was, the theme of that was getting started with electronic music. So really clearly there's a desire for people in the area to get going, either they've been involved in electronic music or they want to get started with electronic music. And we had folks and have folks coming from all over the place. You know, when we say we're North Coast Modular Collective, that's kind of like all of Michigan, plus that island in Fort Porter, leading Chicago, over to Ohio, like all of those things, like we really are looking at that through a big lens. And so we've had people that are coming from Traverse City and South Bend, Indiana, and all over the place, which really, I think, reflects that desire for people to be in community and work with them. Right? Extending that is our online community forum, which we've launched in a more public sense a couple of months ago. So we've been using an online forum for ourselves as core organizers, and now we've opened that up to invite people in. And the process is really simple. There's a simple online application form to just say who you are, a little bit about what you're interested in, and then you can join the community and participate. And we discuss all the different things, including the stuff that we'll be talking about today.
Yeah, one of the things that we've been working on over time is, at first we had the core organizing group was pretty well organized, and we had the participants, just people who show up. But then over time, 2 years ago and on, we started noticing, well, there were a bunch of people who wanted to be more than participants, but not quite organizing everything. And so that's where this collectivist concept came up, and that's where this is sort of the forum online for the people who are collectivists to kind of get together and chat and talk and discuss things as well between meetups and so forth. And the collectivists we're envisioning are going to eventually, as they want, help get more involved in some of the decision making and the planning and prep on things as well. Yeah, sort of open source and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And so that led to things like our open studio time, which we did during summer camp, where we invited people in as a way to give them opportunity to perform and walk away with a really nicely captured video and audio of what they did. I was actually just listening to one of those recordings this week, revisiting that, going back and listening. So there's some really great stuff. We're using that as a way to give that opportunity for artists who maybe it's their first time performing, or maybe there's somebody who's played a little bit and they want to have something they can use as an electronic press kit, or just a way to sort of give people an opportunity to see and hear what they do. So we're really excited about those things. And then the focus of today's talk, of course, is instruments. If you're interested in finding out more about those first two aspects of music and community, we had the great privilege of being on a couple of the bigger sort of electronic music and modular focused podcasts. So the Modular Podcast actually did a two-part series that we were guests on. And then Darwin Gross's Art Plus Music Plus Technology podcast also hosted us about a year and a half ago, something like that. So we definitely go into deeper dives on those pieces during that. But the focus of today's talk is about our approach to instrument design, which we're really excited to talk about because it's one of the things that kind of got us going. So just making it very plain, The big focus for what we're doing is designing and making different Euro-rack modular synthesizer modules, along with things like some open source software and hardware that relate to those things.
And we should also state that while the name says North Coast Modular Collective, and while you will see us talking about modular stuff, the group as a whole is more about just electronic music and the artistry of it, and it's not just this kind of stuff. Like, for example, you'll see later tonight, today, some live coding and things like that as well. So.
Yeah, so we're a very big 10 kind of group. Like if you're using hardware that's not modular, awesome. If you're using software, awesome. If you're using modular, awesome. Like we love it all. But the stuff that we're focusing on specifically designing is in the modular level. And so we're really focused right now on bringing people in through things like DIY workshops, and we'll speak more to that in a little bit as well. A new effort that we've just started is called Open Lab Time. We just did our first public open lab 2 weeks ago, and it was a real success, really a way to get people involved in the process in actually designing things and seeing how things are designed. And everybody, a range of people who had never done anything, had really not much idea about circuit design or electronics, all the way to people who knew more than us, which is awesome. That's great. That's not hard, by the way, to know more electronics than me. That's not my expertise. So that's really gratifying to see that coming together.
Yeah, this was
that event held? Where was that event held?
That was held at the Ann Arbor STEAM School. And we're actually talking with a few other maker shops around the area to see if we, kind of do that kind of event in one of them as well. Yeah, and this was great because it was sort of like we just came to the community and said, hey, we're building these things, and we have issues with some of them. Come help us figure it out. So there were some things we learned along the way as a group. It was great. We'll talk about it later.
Yes. Yeah, so that's part of our instrument design process is bringing people in. And so these are kind of some of our values, the things that we value. We've kind of gone through an evolution on this. And just so you have a bit of the context, we're in the process of working towards becoming an actual 501c3 nonprofit. So we're definitely not a company in the sense that we're trying to make money selling products. And that's been an evolution to get us to that point. So our values really reflect that. Things like learning and teaching, experimenting, curiosity, inclusion over financial gain. All of those values really come from that process of figuring out what we are. Are we a company? Are we a nonprofit? Are we just a group of friends that are hanging out? We kind of have gone through that whole valley, or that whole journey along the way. Yeah.
That's been fun.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where in retrospect you go, oh, we were figuring this out. We didn't realize at the time we were figuring this out, but oh, here we are. And so we have some really specific design goals that come off of that. So the ability to facilitate learning is a big one, obviously, and that includes people that are core organizers in the collective as well as people in the broader community. And accessibility is a real key issue for us because if you've ever priced out or bought modular gear, you know it's expensive. And it can be indecipherable to know what this specific number module means or does. At least we're not in the Google world. Google world is like impenetrable, like it's all numbers and weird colors and banana jacks and not understand. It's so accessibility is really a big thing, and you'll hear that theme kind of coming up throughout the talk. And so our design aesthetic kind of ties into that as well. That's a piece that I've been pretty heavily involved with in terms of setting up. So it's geographically situated. We realized as we started coming up with our first module ideas that we needed names for them, not just descriptive names, but also a name that's kind of catchy and interesting. And so when we finally hit on this idea of using place names, I think Joe came up with the first couple of place name things, the Ann Arbor percussion synthesizer, and then that kind of went, well, wait, what if all of them had those names? And we leaned into that even harder and started using the contour lines, which they're very subtle on this screen. It's like there's very low contrast there, but when you see some of these later, you'll see that we actually use contour maps from the U.S. National Geographic's or Geological Survey, rather, on our faceplates as a design element, but also as a subtle way to tie back to the fact that they're related to some specific place. And really, focusing on human-centered design. So not just cramming as much stuff on a panel as possible, but really thinking about how people will actually use that thing.
Yeah, and then underlying all of those concepts is this sort of this philosophical kind of interrogation of the physicality of modular instruments with the virtuality of music, and then thinking through, a lot of us were grappling with, well, why do we like this rather than composing on a computer with software? And so this whole connection to physical place was one of those things. So that's yet another dimension to why we kind of latched on to this concept of, well, let's make it in Southgate, Michigan, or let's make it in Lodi, Michigan, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And so that kind of became codified into our style guide. It's not something that we look at every single day, but it is kind of a guiding thing. Just thinking very carefully about what kind of typeface we use for things, how we name products, what's our color palette look like, how do we call ourselves, what names do we use, those kinds of things. And so that style guide really is, a thing that sort of brings all that stuff together.
And this is really cool because it makes us look way more organized.
Way more. It was like, I had too much coffee late at night one night, and I was like, what if I just made this thing? And I looked up 2 hours later, and I was like, oh, hey, that's useful, I think. So that's our style guide, and it just, like I said, it just kind of pulls all those ideas together into one place. And so you can kind of see that a little bit more on the screen there with some of the design aesthetic choices in terms of the contour lines, the place names.
So, for example, with this flats here, those concentration of lines that go through the FM there, that's a river. So you can kind of play with that kind of concept where you're thinking about the flow of the electrons, the flow of music, signal flow, that kind of stuff. So getting really silly and nerdy with it.
Yeah. But I mean, if we're not going to, what's the point of this whole thing?
Yeah.
So then we want to talk a little bit more deeply about how we actually do this. How do we go from an idea to an actual thing? And we'll spend some time going through that and demonstrating some of those things.
Yeah, and so this approach itself is sort of evolving, but it's usually been very centered on the concepts of agile development, and it really kind of taking a lot of cues from software development itself and open source software, and trying to apply that to hardware as well. So there have been many other pioneers who've done more, better work than we have in open source hardware, but we're just kind of trying to apply that with community and music as well. So a lot of times what we do is we just kind of have an idea in our head vaguely about something we want to do, and this is something that we tend to sort of start sketching on, and a lot of us think very visually or very end-oriented, so it's like we'll figure out, I want a knob that does this, and then I want another one that does that, and so we start from the end and kind of cardboard that out, and that's what you see over there on the left there is that's literally a cardboard box with some knobs stuck in it. Yeah. So like these notes of sitting down by yourself or with somebody else is maybe like even the beginning starting point or an online chat conversation about like, hey, wouldn't it be awesome to have this thing that did this? And then pretty quickly as we can, we try to move to some kind of prototype. Yeah. So unlike a lot of places, we don't start with a schematic first or electronics first. We start with, what do I want to do as a musician first? And then we think through the physical aspects of it because we feel very much about how it feels and the configuration of it is important to us because it's a musical instrument. So we do that kind of thing. We even gone so far as there's one of the modules we have is a fader module. And we had a night where we just bought one of a ton of different faders. And we had like a wine tasting contest, but it was for faders, and it was a blind fader test. And each one of us would fade, one, okay, now where's the next one? Okay, all right, ooh, that was a little too sloppy. Oh, that was too viscous. Okay, so it's like after tons of, I don't know, paprika or something. So, but we went through that whole thing, and then we said, okay, well, here's the fader that we really feel like works well for all of us here, and so forth. So that's, thinking that human-centered design, that's all kind of part of that. But when we do finally get to the part where we say, okay, now we've got, here are the basic building blocks of the interface, what we want to do, the goals around that, we start sketching up the schematics for it itself. Sometimes that's just breadboarding stuff out and seeing what explodes and what doesn't. Other times that's doing it in software like Eagle, which is like a CAD kind of software for this stuff. And
That's that second photo.
Yeah,
the screen up there is a screenshot.
Yeah.
Like a Pico.
And what will usually happen is a few iterations of buying some boards from that online, from a place called Park that's out west. And they'll do low runs of this kind of stuff. And this is that iterative piece. And this is one of those things that, at least for me conceptually, was hard to get over at first, because I always thought of hardware as being finite and final. And so I would try to make it the most perfectness as possible, and then get one quarter of it, and then, oh, that was going to be it. And I had to kind of think to myself, how do I make this modular, and also make it so you can do tests and advanced things, like how you take one concept out and test with that, and then when that's good, then you put that into the main circuit and so forth. So these kinds of things were like where we were borrowing from agile programming in hardware, and so that's where that stack of PCBs comes from, because we go through several iterations of those as we're testing things out.
See that literal stack?
Yeah.
Where it's, each one of these is some functionality broken out into a specific board or part, and we're really just kind of trying to test each of these at once.
So like with this example, one of these boards just handles power, converting the power from Eurorack standard level down to what this little microchip can handle, called a teensy here. It's like an Arduino compatible one. One of the layers is the Arduino itself. Another one is just doing the audio, so it's making the audio. The other one is handling just the knobs and the inputs and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and so so you can see on the right there, that's the faceplate. That's another part of the design process, of course. We did it in Adobe Illustrator. That's one of the parts that I've done some of, and Joe's done some of, and we're working to get other people doing that as well. But basically taking our style data and starting to actually realize it in the form of a faceplate in the front panel. To lay out controls, think about where they make sense, what they should be called, how they're labeled. Those would have some interesting ramifications on how you use a piece of gear as well. What's the thing's called, how closely spaced is it to the next thing, and those cardboard prototypes come in really handy for that as well, because we can take it, print it off as a piece of paper, stick it on there, and go like, oh yeah, those nuts aren't too tightly spaced together. We've got to loosen it up so people can get their hands in there and actually play this thing. And so this is the kind of the process that Joe was talking about. But as we were realizing this, especially lately, we realized that as we're moving into that broader community sense, whereas 2 years ago it was really just me or Joe and Dan or whoever tossing ideas back and forth between us, we wanted to broaden that out to a larger community. So the top photo there is us just doing some soldering at one of our summer camps, where it's just the core organizers really. And then the bottom one is the recent Open Tech Lab that we did, the Open Lab time a couple of weeks ago, where we brought people from the community and said, hey, like this is what we're trying to develop. Bring your ideas, what did you learn from us as we explore this thing. Yeah, so we very much have been on a journey for the last couple of years in this design process, starting from some pretty complex module ideas and actually now moving in the direction of simplicity.
Yeah, so I won't go into too much detail, but this one here is what's up there right now. And it was, we had a phase where we were like, wow, the sky's the limit, and we could do anything and everything. This is amazing. And we kind of over-complexified everything. And that kind of buried us in lots of different things going on at once. And so from the outside coming in, this is indecipherable. This is if I had to teach somebody what this is, good luck. You'd like many years to teach somebody that kind of stuff.
Not how to use it, but how to actually make it.
Right. How does this work? What is it doing? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And so we envisioned like, oh, it could be, you know, we could take this common platform for a percussion synthesizer, and we could have different voices that were optimized, like a kick drum. And I got really obsessed with this teensy audio library programming for a while, trying to come up with like the ultimate flexible kick drum that sounded awesome. And we did some other really complex things as well, involving the terminal team.
And this is kind of a Raspberry Pi based module that somebody else designed, and we added on some add-ons to kind of extend its functionality. But as we were going through, we were realizing, you know, parallel to all that, we were finding our way as an organization and trying to figure out what we were there for. And we realized that we're not quite there for these complex things. They're cool. they're wonderful, they're fun to do, but really we're trying to lower the barriers to entering in this and really trying to teach people how to do this kind of stuff, the DIY, the design, basic synthesis concepts, and so forth. And so we started going much more simple with our designs.
Real quick, just back up just for 1 second. It's important to know in context here that what we're talking about as we made that sort of shift in our thinking from being a company potentially selling stuff to being an open source collective is we realized that being able to get these into a form where people could build them themselves was going to be really challenging to make that possible. Not that we might not come back to that, get back to that point at some point, but if our goal is to open it up towards people being able to do this stuff themselves, to build these modules themselves, to understand what's going on, and to learn something from that process, this was kind of the wrong end of that spectrum to start on.
Yeah, because if it's my first time soldering something, that's pretty intimidating. Yeah. So enter something like this, called the Modular, which is one of the most simple kinds of modules that you can get. It just takes one signal and copies it out to other areas. And it literally only has 8 parts. It's 8 of those jacks. So, and its cost is really, really low. So if you're learning how to solder and you mess it up, it's not a big deal. It's not a big investment. You can go back and get a new board and do it over. And it also kind of gets you into the ideas and the concepts of what the signal flow looks like and how to DIY things.
Yeah, and if you're somebody that already has a system, it's we did this at a summer workshop this year. You can walk away from that after an hour or whatever of soldering and have something that's immediately useful to drop into a system that you already have. If you're just starting to build a system, it's a really great utility to have in your case. So it's a nice starting point.
And this low-pass gate is something that we're working on right now. And it's basically a mult plus an LP, plus a backfill. And so essentially what it does is it takes a signal and either lets it through or it doesn't. And that's essentially what it does. And this is something that it doesn't have very many parts either. So it's kind of just the next little step up in complexity from that.
Both of those are passive, which means you don't have to worry about your rack power. You can just build this thing, drop it in self-contained, and you can plug stuff into it and through it. You don't have to worry about powering it or connecting it and it blowing up because you wired it wrong or what have you. So it's kind of a nice, comforting starting point.
Yeah. And then we have a flint fader, which is on the synthesis side very simple. It's just a fader where at the bottom it is no voltage. It's sending no voltage. When you go up, and it sends 5 volts. So it's in between, anywhere in between. But DIY-wise, especially in the Eurorack format, a lot of modules require this SMD style component, which is basically little teeny weeny components, much smaller than the normal ones. And so there's a whole set of people who are familiar with doing DIY, but just haven't made that leap into that kind of DIY. And so we specifically designed this as my first SMD kind of module, where you could make that leap. And you kind of see at the top there, just below the Michigan, or the lace there, is one of those components in there. We picked kind of the biggest ones that we could possibly get and the easiest ones to do that with, and designed it to have the fewest possible parts as well.
Yeah. And again, pretty simple build, relatively speaking. You're going to walk away once you've built that with something that's pretty useful to have in your case.
Yeah. Oh, and there's all the parts for the whole module there. Another one that we're working on along the lines of the simpleness is a simple oscillator. And it's super simple because it just has one knob and that's it, and an output. And it really is based off of just 2 components, a capacitor and a transistor. And so then we can teach some very basic components, electronics there. We can do also some basic DIY. And also, if you're new to synthesis, this helps with some very early synthesis concepts, like what a voltage-controlled oscillator is. Although this one's not voltage controlled. But then we can talk about that. Yeah, isn't it? So forth.
Yeah, so like Joe mentioned a couple of times, my full-time job is that I teach technology and engineering at university at WSU. which is a public K-8 school focused on project-based learning in STEAM subject areas. And so I'll be running an after-school workshop there this summer, or sorry, rather this year. Actually, it's in February, which is perfect because it's February in Michigan. So let's go outside. Oh wait, it's 5 o'clock, it's dark already. So having interesting stuff to do during those dead months is kind of nice. So that's going to be something where I can take that module and literally just go, hey, look, when you turn it up, the frequency gets higher, the pitch gets higher. Now what can we do with that? And use that as a really simple building block, whether it's from the electronic side of things or whether it's from the music side of things, or both of those together.
Yeah, and I think this really what we're looking to try and do is create some sort of like roadmap of modules that would become little stepping stones that become a little bit more complex, and then you could add on to them and make a mini system yourself of things that along the way through that journey you would learn some DIY skills, you would learn some electronics, and you would learn some basic synthesis as well.
Yeah, so I mean, if you have, which you do, have a simple oscillator and a low pass gate and a fader, you've got enough to make sound and choose when it comes out the speaker. Like, it's not much, but it's a great starting point, and it's a pretty easy set of elements to do that.
Yeah. What else we got?
Yeah, you know, like I mentioned at the very beginning of this, part of our goal is increasing accessibility. And if you've ever tried to buy a Eurorack case, you know that it can be intimidating and really expensive. And so we've been doing a bunch of case designs. That's kind of one of my specialties because I love woodworking. So I've been building some more complex and nicer, kind of more finely finished cases, but I've also been exploring the idea with input from the collective members about what would it be like to make a really, really simple, really cheap, inexpensive case. And so we designed and built this sort of flat pack, almost IKEA-style case that we made available at one of our summer workshops at the end of our summer camp this year. We may do another run of those, and it's just really like 5 pieces of wood and some rails and a couple of pieces of hardware. Trying to get the goal being to get it as cheap and as accessible as possible while still having something that's useful. So we want to do a little demo. Joe's going to lead that part. I'm going to switch over to the camera so we can see and hear.
Do we have audio?
Where are you starting from, Joe? Are you starting from this character? Yeah. Well, I think that's all. Does that work for everybody? So while they're figuring that out, just top to bottom on the screen. The purple one there is the simple oscillator.
So what you're hearing is the tone of that purple oscillator. I'll change the pitch. And it's going through a low pass gate, so that's telling it when to turn on and off. This module right here is sending a signal that goes up and down. So on, off. So when you hear the sound, it's going on, it's off. And then way over on this other side, I have a fader that changes how fast that goes on and off. So it's not the most astounding thing in the world, but I can say I made it. And now we're going to
I want to use that trick.
Yeah. All right. Okay, I think that's all we have time for, right?
Yeah, any questions? Yeah, we've got some time for questions, a little time for question and answers. Yeah, a few minutes. Yeah. Yeah.
So, like, if I want to get one of these modules, like, how much, like, so they all come in, like, DIY kits, right? If I want to get one of these, like, DIY kits, like, where can I get it, and how much does, like, a simple cost?
Yeah, so we have an Etsy shop that we're selling them on, and you got it on there?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest starting point is modularcollective.com. All the things that we have available for sale right now are on the Etsy store that's linked to there. The goal is to start making more of those things available. So not everything that we talked about today is available. So like the low pass gate is still in that sort of prototyping and development stage. But once it becomes available, that'll go there as well.
How many people attended your workshop this summer? Or how many students or?
The one during summer camp, we had 9 people building. They built 18 different kits. And that was the max, so it sold out. So that was how many stations that Makerspace had.
How did you advertise it?
Mostly on the social media and word of mouth.
Yeah, we've got the advantage of being a collective that we've got people who have a pretty broad range of skill sets. So like Nick, for example, is awesome at like running our store, shooting our videos, setting up systems to help us promote stuff on social media like Instagram, Facebook, and all that. And so really it's mostly been that. And as we're building up our online community, the discussion board that we showed, that's another way of kind of getting that word out among people who we already know are interested and want to do stuff.
We're on a very shoestring budget, so marketing is not one of the things we spend a lot of money on yet.
Well, I've been to a couple of your programs in Harvard, and I got to say, if you haven't been to one, you should go because you guys really do a great job. They're very organized, and I mean, I think you had people there from Traverse City, and you really had a good showing. But I really respect your organization and how you streamed it and everything. That's awesome.
Well, thank you. That means a lot.
Yeah, it's definitely humbling to see people make that drive. They're like, well, it's better. Better worth it. It's worth it. You're going to drive 2 hours to see us talk about stuff. Yeah. Yeah. You have another question?
Yeah. So like, if someone like myself, like I like analog gear a lot, but it's really hard to like I used to be like messing around with like my Volvo stuff a lot, and it's like now I do like pretty much everything in the box because it's like it's not that accessible. Like, so what would you think would be the best like kind of software way to integrate Modular like within the box?
Yeah, there's like this is an amazing time to be a musician starting off doing this stuff. What I personally have been doing a lot with lately is VCB Rack, as well as reactor blocks. So VCB Rack kind of takes I'm going to totally emulate Eurorack on software kind of approach, where it's like skeuomorphic, so it looks like regular hardware modular. This is VCB Rack, it's free, it's open source, there are modules you can buy, but everything in that rack up there, which I don't remember what all is in there, everything in that rack is all just free modules that you can get. They've partnered with organizations like Musical Instruments and De Facto and a bunch of the manufacturers, as well as just software developers who are making stuff. So this is kind of a standalone thing, so I don't know if you use like Ableton Live or one of the other DAWs, it's like their kind of primary platform. This is standalone. They're coming out with a VST version of this, whenever the next major release cycle is, like version 2, which is going to be like $100 or something, but it's still like insane what you can get for that. I use it a ton alongside my hardware modular system, partly as a way to just be able to explore stuff and try different things, but also as a way to test stuff out. So like I bought a beautiful Platts like a couple months ago, but I was able to test that out completely in software before I bought it to go like, yeah, I think this will be a good purchase. I think I have 15 of them in this rack on VCB Rack if I want to, whereas each one is $200 or $300 in person. The other one is reactor blocks, so you can get the free reactor player, and then their new blocks interface basically lets you do front panel patching with a set of free things that they've opened up. That does run as a VST or audio unit plugin, so you can run right inside something like Ableton Live, and I'm starting to dive into that more as well. So these are great for sort of learning those techniques and going like, well, when I have an oscillator, like how do I make it so that I don't always hear the sound, like so that it turns on or off, or like let sound through or not. Just learning that basic signal flow. These are really great tools for that.